A new report from the United Nations Refugee Agency says a record number of people around the world were forcibly displaced in the last year, mainly due to widespread violence. 1.5% of the world's population have been forced from their homes, and the agency is warning that number, that percentage, could continue to grow. Let's go to Julia Wong, who has more details from London. Julia.
Well, Heather, that number that you mentioned of those people who have been displaced, that has been on the upward trend for the last 12 years. That 117 million figure is as of the end of 2023. But this report says as of April of this year, that number likely grew to more than 120 million. That's about the population of Egypt. That's a little bit less than the population of Japan. So it really brings these numbers to life. Now, these are people who have been displaced because of conflicts, persecution, and violence. So, for example, the UN says violence in Sudan has created one of the largest humanitarian and displacement crises in the world. It says close to 11 million Sudanese were forcibly displaced at the end of 2023. And millions more have been displaced because of the war between Israel and Hamas. Close to 14 million Syrians have been forced from their homes because of hostilities there. And nearly 11 million Afghanis remain displaced. So all those numbers adding up, it's a lot. Now, many have fled to UN-run transit centers and seem to be frustrated that there's little they can do about the violence that's pushing them from their homes.
Julie, the report also outlines what could happen if global violence continues at the current pace. So what is the warning that's in this report from the United Nations on that?
So the High Commissioner is sharing a few words of advice. He says that countries really need to work together instead of relying on quick fixes like shutting down borders. He also had a warning for parties that are involved in these conflicts and involved in this violence, saying that there's been a disregard for international humanitarian law. Filippo Grandi says people are being terrorized and filled with fear, and he argues that is a factor in driving more displacement than we've seen in the past. He also...
Unless there is a shift in international geopolitics, unfortunately, I actually see that figure continuing to go up. Maybe not significantly if we're lucky and we have no new conflicts, but even the non-resolution of the old ones means that, also refugees increase in numbers.
Now, in an ideal world, those who are displaced can return home, but resettlement is another option. Now, this report says while the U.S. receives the largest number of resettled refugees, Canada is not far behind. It says Canada resettled more than 51,000 refugees, primarily from Afghanistan, Eritrea, and Syria.
Julia, thank you very much.